As I continue my journey through Matthew's Gospel, we reach a very significant passage which speaks of a remarkable healing of a Canaanite woman's daughter, showing that the Gospel is for all. Let me read that account in chapter 15, verses 21 through to 28. Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from that vicinity came to him crying out, "Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly." Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It's not right to take the children's bread and toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." Then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. This is such an important account, but to understand it, we must put it into the context. For in the previous 20 verses, Jewish people had been criticizing Jesus. However, now we're introduced to a Canaanite woman who Jesus welcomes. This would have scandalized Jewish thinking and some that read these words for the first time. The deliberate contrast appears to be made. In verse 23, we read the fact that the point seems to be that the disciples shared a harsh view that the Messiah had only come for them and their people. In his comments on this account, Stephen Dre points to two ways of understanding the disciples' words. Send her away. I mean, when I read those words, send her away, they feel so harsh. However, he heads the section, a world faith. The Canaanite woman is not only persistent, but she also lacks pretension. Her questions that she asks and the way in which she seeks help are the kind of thing that raise questions in our own minds and certainly question our own attitudes. Are there people we think that are beyond the reach of Jesus? He describes the woman who knelt before him as having great faith. You could even think as you read this passage that Jesus is being persuaded. Maybe what is happening is we're being exposed to that important truth that the disciples had to discover for themselves, and they had to embrace the life of the Christian community as times went by. And that is that the good news, the reach of God, is to all people. And all down the years, Christians have had to discover that in their different contexts, sometimes as missionaries, as we've heard, sometimes in the context of preaching with people who are outside of the normal realm of the Christian community. Maybe there needs to be a reminder. I think somebody once wrote something about this particular passage and said there should be a statue of this woman at the door of every church, suggesting that really what we read about here is an indication of the reach of the gospel to the Gentiles, to the people who are outside the realm and capture of the normal Christian community. Harry Emerson Fosdick was a great North American preacher and writer. And he wrote about the difference between fear and faith. Fear, he said, imprisons. Faith liberates. Fear paralyzes. Faith empowers. Fear disheartens. Faith encourages. Fear sickens. Faith heals. We've lived through some times when people's lives have been caught up in fear all across the world. We need to be reminded that fear is not the end of the game. It's not the last word on situations, but faith can open up new opportunities, new possibilities when we embrace faith, just as this woman did here. It would have been a shock to the disciples, but Jesus acknowledges something very real as this woman comes to him and gains his help. Woman, you have great faith. She's a woman. She's from outside the camp, if you like, and yet she demonstrates faith. And to her, he says, your request is granted. He's always ready to grant the requests of those who embrace this truth in their own lives.